Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Saha Vidyan Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Chaitanyam Sarvagam Sarvam Sarvaguhashayam Yat Sarva Vishayatitam Tasmai Sarvavide Namaha. Good. Welcome back. Nice to see you all. Welcome also to the many students regularly watching this class on YouTube. We will continue today. Before we continue, this next verse picks up where we left off, where we had that interesting discussion about the difference between adjective and upadhi. I feel like I didn't explain that as well as it could have been explained, and it's a crucial teaching, so I'd like to just review that, and it'll lead into the next verse. And if you remember, it was the more conventional way, more scholarly way of teaching what is an upadhi. Generally, we use this very non-scholarly way, and we say that the cloth is an upadhi, and upadhi is that word which is almost untranslatable. Conditioning adjunct comes close. So the presence of the conditioning adjunct of the cloth causes the crystal to appear as other than it truly is. And in this metaphor represents the fact that your body, mind, and senses are all upadhis for Atma. In their presence, Atma seems to be other than what it truly is. We've discussed this many, many times, but in last week's class, for the first time, we took a more nuanced approach, which is more in keeping with how the great commentators will describe the nature of an upadhi. I'd like to return to that briefly, and I think I want to... let me go to the... let me give you the overview, then I want to go to the board and give you something very concrete, and then perhaps we'll talk about it a little bit further here. The overview is that wonderful metaphor we used, and this is a traditional metaphor. If you want to point out a house, you can point out a house by means of an adjective. White house. In that, we're not talking about Washington, D.C. now. The house that happens to be white in color, that house also happens to be white in color. So, that word white is an adjective. You could also refer to the house as the house with the black crow on it. And in this example, the word white of the White House is clearly an adjective. The house with the crow on it is not exactly an adjective, right? What is it that makes that black crow different from the whiteness of the house? The whiteness of the house is intrinsic in the house, whereas the black crow is not. Black crow can fly away. So this is how scholars understand the difference between adjective, called visheshana, like the White House, and upadhi, like the black crow. The black crow is extrinsic, whereas the whiteness of the house is intrinsic. In the same way, actually, we'll come to this in just a moment. Let me just go to the board, since I set this up. Yeah. And just to give you what I just said very concisely. So what we're talking about is a difference between an adjective In Sanskrit, sheshada, which is intrinsic as opposed to an upadhi or conditioning adjunct. Even this word conditioning adjunct is really inadequate. Upadhi is a very subtle principle. We'll talk about it some more. Upadhi, which is extrinsic. So intrinsic, like the whiteness of the house; extrinsic, like the accidental presence of the black crow. Yeah? Oh, I need to go back now. Thank you. Forget that. Good thing I have alert students to tell me what I'm supposed to do here. Otherwise, it's all gone. Okay, thank you. So, let's now apply this to our experience. When you define yourself, you use an adjective, right? When you say, I am male or female, those are adjectives, right? When you say, I am old or young, those are adjectives. When you say, I am, and fill in the blank, pretty much whatever you're going to put in that blank is an adjective which turns out to actually refer to the condition, not the condition of atma, which is neither male nor female, neither young nor old, ends up referring to other things, upadhis. And this is what this teaching is all about. So, when I say I am young or old, I'm actually referring to an upadhi. Is young, let me put it to you as a question. The terms young and old, when applied to atma, when you say I, the ultimate meaning of I means what? The truth of who you are, the essence of who you are as a conscious being. In essence, I am a conscious being. We use the pronoun I to refer to that conscious being. So when you say, I am young or old, those adjectives, are those adjectives for atma? Or are they upadhis? The body is, let me try to I had a better way of saying this a moment ago. Let me see if I can get it back. An adjective is intrinsic. Is maleness and femaleness intrinsic to atma? No, we understand that. They're extrinsic. They're a fact. You know, we refer to ourselves as male or female, so they're facts, but they're not intrinsic to atma. They are extrinsic to atma. They're words that relate to the upadhi. Then our scholars like a fancy word. They call them aupadika. Aupadika means due to an upadhi. So when you call yourself male or female, those words, male and female, properly understood, are not adjectives. They are aupadika. They relate to the upadhi, body. Similarly, young or old relate to not atmas, not young or old, unborn, uncreated, unchanging. So they are also aupadika. They relate to the nature of the body. Now, the significance of this is in the intrinsic-extrinsic part. When you fail to discern the difference between an adjective and upadhi, and you say, I am male or female, in our minds, those are adjectives referring to atma and superimposing intrinsically maleness or femaleness on atma, which is genderless. Suppose we reframe that expression in our minds so that when we say, I am male or female, the terms male and female are not adjectives, but refer to the upadhi. So we're not trying to reinvent language. How odd it would be. You go the doctor is filling out your chart or whatever, and he says to you, male or female, and you say, oh, my body happens to be female or male. You're not going to say that, right? That's very artificial. You're still going to say, I am male, I am female, but let those words not be intrinsic. We can use that language knowing that those words are not adjectives. Those words indeed are aupadika. Then we can use that language without getting ourselves confused and without getting anyone else confused. So you can say, I am male or female, taking those words to refer to the upadhi. Body is male or female. I am young or old. Body is young or old. I am, with regard to prana, I am tired, I am alert, I am weak. All adjectives, atma doesn't get tired. All adjectives referring to, all upadhis of the pranamaya kosha, the prana, our life force. Mind, when you say, I am happy or sad, this is our classic one. We use again and again, and we use it again and again because it's so important. Everyone has that experience of being sad. Everyone identifies it as an undesirable feeling, and then it causes suffering. Suppose we reframe it. When you say, I am sad, you're not talking about a condition of atma. Sadness is not a quality of atma, which, as we're going to discuss in the very next verse, atma has no qualities, something we've discussed many times. So then what is that sadness all about? Oh, it's a feature of my mind. A mind which is like the crow on the house. It's extrinsic. Sadness is present in my mind, is a fact. So what? Everything goes on changing in my mind. Let it be there. Who cares? What difference does it make? And as we've said, whenever we use this example, we've pointed out that sadness is not your enemy. If it were, how could you enjoy a sad movie? You enjoy sad movies. Sadness is not the problem. The problem is when you superimpose that sadness as an adjective to describe the nature of atma, that's where we get in trouble. So let it be aupadika. Let it describe the nature of the mind. No problem. And we do that all the way through with any and all adjectives that we use to describe ourselves. And to use, this is the language of Swami Tadatmananda, one of my Guru Bhais, a tremendously skillful teacher of Advaita Vedanta. In his words, we have to convert adjectives, visheshanas, because he'll use the Sanskrit terminology. We have to convert these visheshanas into upadhis. And I know that when I used that term last week, it must have sounded very abstract. Hopefully, it's a little bit less abstract today. So what we're doing is we're reframing our use of language. Turns out language gets us in trouble a lot. So when you say, I am male or female, this is where it begins. So let's understand that language properly. Let's reframe it. Understand these words male, female are not adjectives. They're like the black crow, which means describing us in a completely, watch this expression. The black crow describes the house in a completely arbitrary manner. It could have been a red cardinal, but it happened to be a black crow. So it's arbitrary. In the same way, male and female are equally arbitrary. That's the idea of upadi. Not intrinsic, extrinsic. Okay, enough. That will actually introduce our next verse nicely. And we'll pick up the thread here. Yeah. Aprapyaiva nivartante, aprapyaiva nivartante, vachodhibhe sahaivatu, vachodhibhe sahaivatu, nirgunatvat kriya bhavat, nirgunatvat kriya bhavat, visheshanam hya bhavataha, visheshanam hya bhavataha. To introduce this verse, if Atma has no attributes, how are we going to describe it? So let's admit that these upadhis are completely arbitrary, so it's not that helpful to describe the house as the one with the crow on, because 2 minutes later the crow is gone. So then we want something more concrete. So that's why we generally say the White House. We use these adjectives. But now, what if Atma has no adjectives? Atma is nirguna, qualityless. Then how will we describe it? How will we reach it? And those are two very different questions. And we'll explain it in the verse, but here's the sneak preview, as it were. How will we describe Atma, which is free from qualities? We just did. And secondly, how will we reach it? We don't need to. It's already here now as your true nature. So let's see how Shankara explains it here, actually by referring to one very famous passage in the Taittiriya Upanishad that goes, Yato vacho nivartante aprahapya manasa saha. The reality we seek is that which aprapya, having failed to reach, the nivartante, one falls back. What falls back? Vachaha. Words fall back. Manasasaha, along with the mind. Words and thoughts fail to grasp this truth we call Atma, because words and mind are very good for dealing with nouns and adjectives. Actually, I shouldn't say nouns. Atma is a noun, correct? Atma is your true self. So let's restrict it to adjectives. What kind of Atma is it? All adjectives. No adjective can describe Atma. So here he paraphrases, aprapya eva nivartante. Having failed, aprapya, having failed to reach, nivartante, it comes back. Plural, they come back. What comes back? Vachaha, plural. Words come back. Dhibihi, along with the buddhi, along with the mind. Dhibihi, saha, along with the intellect. So paraphrasing that Taittiriya passage. And why is this so? As we've been discussing, nirgunatvat, because Atma has no qualities. Full stop. No adjectives. How will you describe the object in my hand? There are no adjectives to describe it. Of course, there's no object either, but you get the point. Kriya abhavat. Atma doesn't do anything. We keep joking, good for nothing. Atma doesn't engage in any action. The significance of that is you only get karma if you do action. Atma has no karma. Atma doesn't commit any karma. Atma doesn't receive any karma phala. Therefore, Atma doesn't get reborn. Atma didn't get born in the first place. And finally, to connect to our discussion here, visheshanam hi abhavataha. Abhavataha, because of the absence of visheshana. Now you know that that word means adjectives. It's translated here as attributes. So words and the mind are very helpful in dealing with adjectives, that which has qualities. That which has no qualities cannot be described. True or false? What I gave you was a description. As just to go back to what I joked with you before. Atma is indescribable. That's a description. We all the time describe things in negative ways. Descriptions, adjectives are assertive. That is, adjectives describe something in a positive way. But we can say something is, actually we can turn it around and say, this table is not green. Even adjectives can be used negatively. We use negative language all the time. What's wrong with it? This table is not green. Atma has no adjectives. That is a description. It is a description, full stop. If you say, but Swamiji, we're only dealing with adjectives, what is the essence of that, of Atma? And this is an important point. We'll make a connection here. It'll help. It's not the topic here. This will help you later. Because it's common to ask, Swamiji, what about the word sat-chit-ananda? Don't those words describe Atma? Sounds reasonable. Atma is Sat, Atma is Chit, Atma is Ananda. Atma is not green, Atma is not blue, Atma is not born, etc. So we have these words. The difference here, though, is that Sat, Chit, and Ananda are not adjectives. An adjective is something that is changeable. You can have a white house, you can have a blue house, you can have a green house. Can you have, another metaphor, greenhouse, needs multiple meanings. Anyway, can you have, so you can have a house that's not white. Can you have an Atma which is not Sat, existence? An Atma which is not Chit, consciousness. An Atma which is not Ananda, limitless, full, complete. So you see the point here is that those three words, Sat, Chit, Ananda, are not adjectives. Just to connect it to our topic here, they reveal the essence of Atma. We call them, for our Sanskrit students, Swarupa Lakshana. Lakshana, indicators of the Swarupa, the essence, the true nature of that. And the last comment here, finishing up this verse, aprapya, having failed to reach. So since we cannot grasp Atma with words or with our minds, should we wrap up our class and go out to the bar? Or something equally silly, go to the mall. How's that? Plenty of malls around. We'll go shopping. And as I said earlier, you don't need to reach Atma. You don't need to grasp Atma. You already are that Atma. But the nature of that Atma is not fully understood. We keep smearing these adjectives on Atma. When you say, I am male or female, what an expression. Smearing means superimposing. Atma is neither male nor female. But we have this confusion in our mind. That confusion leads to suffering. Like when you say, I am sad. That is based on a wrong conclusion. It leads to suffering. So, we'll finish this verse with this observation we've made before, and that is, the teachings of Vedanta do not and cannot reveal Atma. Makes sense now, right? Atma need not be revealed. It's already present here and now as the consciousness which is the basis for whatever you're experiencing. The problem is not the lack or absence of revelation of Atma. It's self-revealing. The problem is our wrong conclusions about that Atma. Okay, enough said. Let us continue. Vyapakam sarvato vyoma, vyapakam sarvato vyoma, murtai sarvarviyojitam, murtai sarvarviyojitam, yata tadvarihatmanam, yata tadvarihatmanam, vidyachudam param param, vidyachudam param param. Good. So here, talking about, Sri Shankara explains how it is we can understand Atma, we can describe Atma as being attributeless, like we describe space. How would you describe space? How big is it? What shape is space in? We describe space with these negative terms. Space has no size, space has no shape. So Shankara says here that that word yata in the third line has to be connected here. Yata, just as, first line, vyoma, just like space, which is vyapakam sarvataha, which is all pervasive. Therefore, that space is sarvaihi murtaihi viyojitam. Space is viyojitam, free from murtaihi, free from form. Sarvaihi, free from all forms. So this is the first part of the metaphor. Just as space, which is all pervasive, is utterly free from form, from size, from dimension, edges, boundaries, etc. He says, tadvat iha atmanam. Iha, here. Atmanam, your true self, is tadvat. It is like that. It's the same. Notice that we describe space. Actually, I'm just thinking about this a little bit more. We have a positive term and a negative term. This is a big deal for people who study logic. That is, we use words positively to assert something or negatively to negate something. Look at the description of space he's given. It says, sarvataha vyapakam, all pervasive. Is that an assertion or a negation? That's an assertion, right? Even though space has no attributes, we can still come up with some words to describe it positively. Same for Atma. But on the other hand, vivarjatam means without. Without murtaihi, without forms. So here we have an assertion. Space is all pervasive, and a negation. Space is formless. And the same two words apply perfectly to Atma. Atma is all pervasive, positively. Atma is formless, negatively. The positive part means that it's the same consciousness that is present in your mind and my mind and every mind. And the formless part means Atma does not conform to your body, your mind, your skull. There's no relationship there at all. So the same, whatever is true about space here in this metaphor is equally true about Atma. And Shankara concludes, therefore, vidyat. Therefore, you should understand that Atma is shuddham. Shuddham, you know, is pure. An interesting observation. And again, this is of great importance for people who are into logic, but you'll get a little insight here. There are some assertions which give their meaning negatively. And what I mean by that is the word shuddham is a positive word, right? Okay, define it for me. You cannot define shuddha, pure, without using negative language. Free from impurities. So shuddham is actually a negating word masquerading as an assertion. This is, I joked before about language. Now you can begin to see how, what English expression? Snaky. Language is like a snake. It just winds around and you don't know where it's going. The point is that our casual use of language leads to fuzzy thinking, and the fuzzy thinking contributes to our ongoing suffering. That's all true. So, final observation here, he says that Atma is shuddham, meaning free from attributes. Of course, we translate it as pure, fine, but pure means what? Pure, you've heard me say before. Pure water means what? Nothing else. You have to use a negating term to understand pure. Okay, but then two more words which are assertions. Param, param. Param, the absolute, param, goal or condition or a state. Now this is a big jump here. I don't think Shankara intends for us to get hung up in this big jump. But when you, I shouldn't be mathematical, Atma minus all attributes equals, oh, you're going to hate this. Atma minus all attributes equals Brahman. What? I'll put that on the board. It's ridiculous, and I've never used that before, so let's look at that for just a moment. It is, I'm admitting, it's ridiculous. Atma minus all attributes equals Brahman. How can I say such a ridiculous thing? Well, generally, we describe Atma with attributes. Happy, sad, male, female, etc., etc. If you subtract off all those attributes, thank you, I keep forgetting. This one also. Okay, so if you subtract off all the attributes from Atma, what's left? What's left is indistinguishable from the substratum for all that exists. And we're not, that's the ultimate teaching of Vedanta, that's revealed in the Mahavakya. We're not going to go further into it. Our topic is attributes, so let's stay with that. So Atma minus all attributes ends up being a way of describing Brahman, is the same as Brahman. Okay, let's continue. Next. Drishtam hitva smritam tasmin. Drishtam tva smritam tasmin. Sarvagrashchat. Sarvagrashchatamasthyajet. Sarvagrashchatamasthyajet. Sarvadrik jyotisha yukto sarvadrik jyotisho yukto dinakritcharvaram yata dinakritcharvaram yata. Little Shankara is a little playful here in an intellectual way, where he talks about drishtam, anything that is seen, smritam, anything that is remembered, and tamas, darkness. These are words that they mean what they mean, but they also represent drishtam, what is seen, represents waking state. Smritam, what is remembered, represents dream state. Tamas, darkness, represents deep sleep. So the words have double meanings here, is my point. And we have to recognize those double meanings in order to get Shankara's sense. He uses double meanings all the time. I mean, just sophisticated writers like Shankara will deliberately make use of these double meanings. Here he says hitwa, giving up drishtam, giving up what is seen, giving up the waking state. Giving up in our current context means disidentification. Too many syllables in that word, but it's an important word. We identify, right now, we identify ourselves as the ones who are seeing, hearing, etc., whatever is happening right now in the class. You're looking at me, whether you're sitting in this room or whether you're looking at a screen on your computer, you are looking at me. No, you're not. You are not looking at me. Seems like it, but it is a trick of our brains and minds that lead you to falsely believe that you're looking at me. The fact of the matter is, you are aware of a representation of me created in your mind due to the complex workings of your brain and eyeballs. You're not looking at me. I'm not being facetious here. You are not looking at me. You are aware of this image of me reconstructed in your mind. We lose sight of that fact all the time, and we think, I'm looking at Swami Tadatmananda. This is confusion. So when Shankara here says, hitva drishtam, he's talking about disidentifying with that wrong perspective that you are the seer of external things. You are not. You are the witness of the activities of your mind, sakshi. And that's true not only during waking state, drishtam, it's equally true, smritam, in dreams. So in dreams, you are, and it's a little easier to understand there, you are the observer of everything you experience in your mind in a dream. There it's pretty easy to understand that if you happen to see me in a dream, would that be a nightmare? I don't know. I hope not. Anyway, just a funny thought came to mind. I'm not sure it would be a good dream or an unpleasant dream. Anyway, I think a good dream, hopefully. I hope so. So if you saw me in a dream, you would have no doubt. Actually, what I'm saying is incorrect. If you saw me in a dream, you would think you're actually seeing me. Whereas, in fact, you're dreaming, and the Swami Tadatmananda you're encountering is a dream fiction. So, again, you are not the observer of objects. You are the observer of your mind alone, leading to this amazing true statement. The only thing You can directly observe. The only thing you have ever directly observed in your entire life is the activities of your mind. Absolutely a true statement. This truth is understood through disidentification. That's what Shankara is teaching here. And he says, similarly in tamas tyajet. And you should also, tyajet, give up, here again means disidentify. You should also, tyajet, you should also disidentify with tamas, the darkness of deep sleep, which he describes as sarvagraha, that which devours experience. Sarvagraha is the all-devourer. It means that which overcomes any possible experience. The point here is saying that in all three cases, you should disidentify. You are not the observer of me sitting in this chair. You are not the participant in a dream world. And even in deep sleep, you are not overcome by darkness. This is the point Shankara wants to make here. You, as a conscious being, are not overcome by consciousness. Then how shall we understand properly? Tasmin, we skipped that word. Tasmin, with regard to each of these three states, waking, dream, sleep, Jagrat avastha, swapna avastha, sushupti avastha. I only give Sanskrit terms where I think they'll be helpful. Otherwise, too much Sanskrit gets in the way. These terms are quite important. So Jagrat avastha, the condition, waking state. Swapna avastha, the sleep state. And sushupti avastha, deep sleep. And let me remind you, these are three avasthas, avastha-traya, we call them. These are three states, and let me figuratively shout this out. These are not states of consciousness. How many times they're called states of consciousness? And that leads to, you might think, oh, Swamiji is being so fussy, so picky here. I'm not. This is crucial. It causes tremendous confusion when you call these states of consciousness. They're states of your mind. So these are, better said, states of experience, which is a proper translation. Three states of experience. Consciousness, as we've discussed many times, is unchanging. How can unchanging consciousness have three states? Okay, enough said. So, what about these three states? Tasmin, with regard to these three states of experience, three conditions of your mind, you as consciousness are sarvadrik. You are the observer, drik, of sarva, of all three states. You are the of, and again, only Sanskrit words that are helpful, avastha traya, three states of experience, avastha traya sakshi, the witness, the awareful observer of the three states of experience. Here Shankara calls sarvadrik, and that witness is jyotisha yuktaha, yuktaha, endowed with. Jyotish here means consciousness, not light, it's metaphor. The witness of the three states of experience, endowed with consciousness, and he gives another metaphor here, yatha, just like dinakrit charvaram. Dinakrit, sun. How many, my gosh, how many words for sun in English? How many words for sun in Sanskrit? Dozens, honestly. One of which happens to be Dinakrit, the maker of day. Okay. And what does the maker of the day do? Sharvaram. Sharvaram means night, and I'm going to criticize my own translation here because it's true. Actually, the translation is okay. It's true that the sun removes darkness. We use that metaphor all the time. This is not Shankara's topic here. Let me not get, we want to finish this text, this passage today. So, the reason I'm stopping is a big topic that we're going to just sidestep for now. We've seen it before, we will see it before, we will see it again, and here's the point. Light destroys darkness. Does consciousness destroy ignorance? This is not our topic here. And we're not quick, we could spend hours talking about this. Light destroys darkness. Good. Does consciousness destroy ignorance? In fact, consciousness reveals ignorance. Do you know Chinese language? How do you know that you don't know? You're conscious of ignorance. You're aware of your ignorance. How to explain this is a big topic, and this is not our topic right now, so allow me to set it aside. If you want, you can bring it up in our satsang, and I'll try to answer it there. So this way we can see one more verse and finish off this sequence of verses. Rupa smrityandhakarartaha Rupa smrityandhakarartaha Pratyayasya gocharaha Pratyayasya gocharaha Sahevatma samodrashta Sahevatma samodrashta Sarvabhuteshu sarvagaha Sarvabhuteshu sarvagaha. And again, he has double meanings. Rupa, smriti, and andhakara. Rupa, form and color, referring double meaning, waking state. Smriti, as we saw before, memory, referring to dream state. Andhakara, darkness, second meaning, deep sleep state. And he's talking about the artaha, the objects that occur in these three states. Objects, vrittis, mental events. So in a waking state, whatever is happening right now, all of this is present in your mind. In dream state, whatever is stirred up by your memory and imagination, all of that is loaded into your mind. And then in deep sleep, there's an interesting question. In deep sleep, is your mind empty? Again, another topic we could talk about for a long time. The preferred way of understanding deep sleep is the presence, as Shankara's already said, presence of tamas, darkness. And philosophically, this becomes a topic of great argument that existed in Shankara's time, arguments that continue even today. So we don't want to get into those arguments right now, but it's helpful to understand your experience of deep sleep as an experience of darkness. And the reason it turns out to be helpful is you can't have an experience of nothing and remember it when you wake up. An experience of nothing is no experience. Sorry to be a little bit technical here, logical here, but an experience of nothing means you had no experience. Then how do you remember that you slept when you wake up? So the way Vedanta teachers always explain this is in deep sleep, you have an experience of Darkness is a metaphor. So we're not talking of, it's a metaphor based on light. You have an experience of tamas. That's a nice way of putting it, as Shankara says. In waking state, and dream state, you have very complex experiences, but in the deep sleep state, you experience tamas and only tamas. All of these things are pratyayaha. They're all mental activities. Activities of the waking state, activities of the dream state, and the tamas present in deep sleep. All of these are pratyayaha, mental events, and all of them are gocharaha. Now, the proper translation in this context is observed. Gochara means that which is within the scope of your attention, of your observation. I'm just pausing and I'm smiling because the literal meaning of gochara is a very interesting idea. Go, many of you know, refers to cows. Chara, the passage of the cows. When cows go out to graze, how far do they go? They only go so far, right? They don't go to Philadelphia. I don't know where that comes from. So you put the cows out to graze, they only go so far. The range over which the cows graze is the literal meaning of this word gochara. We use it all the time for what you are aware of, what you are conscious of. The scope of your consciousness. Now here things get interesting. The scope of your individual consciousness is the contents of your mind. Right? What is gochara to you as an individual being is the contents of your mind. But watch this. I said the word individual consciousness because that's another upadhi, by the way. Consciousness is, as we've discussed, all pervasive. Let's see the rest of Shankara's verse, and then I'll make that very clear. He says that what is gocharaha, what is observable to consciousness, what is witnessed by consciousness, Shankara goes to say that saha eva atma. Actually, let me explain this first, otherwise that won't make too much sense. So, you call it my consciousness, but as we've observed many times, you don't have any... This is tricky. Consciousness has no special connection to you, but you have a special connection to consciousness. Let me try to explain that. Consciousness, as we've discussed many times, all pervasive, same consciousness that reveals your thoughts is the same consciousness that reveals my thoughts. So consciousness doesn't have any special connection to you or to me or to anyone. But we have a special connection to consciousness. We superimpose, this is a little tricky, we superimpose the knownness of our mental activities on consciousness. Let me say that again, see if you can understand. It's a little obscure. Whatever is happening right now is known to you. So let us call it the property of knownness. This experience right now has a property of knownness. And we attribute that property of knownness of this experience, your individual experience, we attribute that to consciousness. We falsely attribute it to consciousness. Consciousness, we just said, has no attributes. How can it have that attribute of knownness of this individual experience? So That's a little complex. Let me try to restate it a little bit more simply, and it simply is this. Consciousness reveals what's happening in your mind, and you are identified with that experience. Based on your identification with that experience, you call it my consciousness. But as we just said, it's not your consciousness. I make a bad joke. Do you have a title or deed to your consciousness? Bad joke. Anyway, the point, there's no ownership for do you own the space where your body is seated? Same thing, right? You don't own the space where your body is seated. You don't own your consciousness. It's all pervasive, and that's what Shankara concludes here. He says, Saha eva atma. That observer is indeed, atma here means paramatma, the consciousness that reveals all mental activities. He says, samaha drashta. It is the drashta, the seer, the observer, which is samaha, the same, sarva bhuteshu, in all beings, that one same consciousness, illumining the mental activities of all beings, because that one consciousness is sarvagaha, is all pervasive. Interesting to reflect on why we use that term, my consciousness. It's like saying, the space in which my body is placed is my space. Interesting, we use English, give me some space. We identify space. This is my space. This is not your space. Give me some space. We use this kind of language. Not my space. No one has ownership over space. This body happens to occupy this space. Space is all pervasive. This body just happens to occupy this particular little bit of space. In the same way, your experience is present in consciousness. Just like the body is present in space, your experience is present in consciousness. The body occupies this space, but doesn't own it. Experience occurs. Your personal experience occurs in consciousness, but it's not your consciousness. I'll give that metaphor one more time. I don't think I've used it before. Try it one more time. Just as your body occupies space without owning it, in the same way, your personal experience occurs in consciousness, but there's no ownership of that consciousness. That consciousness is one and all pervasive. Good. That's a nice place to conclude. We'll continue next week. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschad Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritangamaya. Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat.